The fiery words of black Muslim minister Louis Farrakhan have once again become the catalyst of friction between blacks and Jews. Last year, his description of Judaism as a gutter or dirty religion was a thorn in the side of Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign, which Farrakhan was supporting.
The disciple of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is here, Minister Louis Farrakhan Muhammad.
This past Saturday, Farrakhan spoke to a crowd of 15,000 in Los Angeles. Jewish groups in the area expected an anti-Semitic message.
The best thing you can do is tell the people I'm a hater, I'm a bigot, I'm an anti-Semite. Now you all listen to me tonight for the next few minutes and you judge me for yourself.
Jewish leaders had asked Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley to renounce Farrakhan, then attacked Bradley for condemning the minister after the speech instead of before.
I repudiate racism, hatred, violence, and bigotry wherever it occurs. That includes Minister Farrakhan.
It has been a bitter battle in Los Angeles. Now, this whole affair out there prompts some important questions. What damage could have been caused here? Where do relations stand between blacks and Jews all across the nation? Let's see if we can find some answers from our guests this morning. First, in Los Angeles, Marshall Grossman. He is with that city's Jewish Federation Council. With him there in L.A., John Mack, president of the Los Angeles Urban League. Joining us in Boston is Dr. Alvin Poussant. He is with the Harvard Medical School. He is an advisor to the Reverend Jesse Jackson. He is a renowned expert on Black America and in Washington. Syndicated columnist Ben Wattenberg of the American Enterprise Institute. Let's begin in Los Angeles, Mr. Grossman. I know it has been a tumultuous struggle out there in Los Angeles, but to much of the nation, this is a rather distant battle. Can you give us some perspective and help us understand why the struggle is so bitter now?
Yes, sir. This is a battle involving all Americans. Mr. Farrakhan is fueled with a $5 million interest-free loan from Libyan dictator Gaddafi. Gaddafi is the principal exporter of terrorism throughout the world. He sends his hitmen throughout Western Europe, and his hand-picked messenger here in the United States is Farrakhan. Farrakhan preaches a message of hate for all of us. He calls the United States government the most immoral government in the world. He preaches that blacks are better than whites. He, of course, attacks all Jews. He says Hitler was a great man, and he attacks distinguished black leaders who disagree with him. Just 2 months ago, he called for the assassination and beheading of black Mayor Wilson Goode of Philadelphia and asked his followers to roll his head down the street.
Mr. Grossman,
That's Farrakhan.
Mr. Grossman, I understand that you don't like Mr. Farrakhan. What are you upset about what happened in Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles, Mr. Farrakhan came to our city and spread his message of hate, again attacking whites, attacking Jews, and attacking established black leaders.
And Mr. Mack, I gather that Mr. Grossman is also upset that Tom Bradley, the mayor of Los Angeles, did not renounce Louis Farrakhan before he spoke. Should Bradley have done that?
No, I think not. I think the mayor was absolutely correct. First of all, he decided that even though he has sharp differences of opinion with Minister Farrakhan does have a right to free speech. In addition, he felt that it would be premature to decide in advance what Minister Farrakhan was going to say, since he could not crawl inside of his head and know what he was going to say. In addition, the mayor and others of us felt that actually our Jewish colleagues who were so mightily and who are so mightily upset and uptight about Minister Farrakhan were playing into the minister's hands. After all, he has been known to black people for 30 years. He has his hardcore followers, and he does obviously have that tradition. But by the same token, black people are basically committed to the Judeo-Christian way of life. And up until this point, and really up until last year, black America knew about him, but white America discovered him last year as a result of the campaign. We felt that, frankly, all of this orchestrated crescendo, which went to a frantic pitch leading up to the minister's visit in Los Angeles, escalated and exacerbated the problem rather than resolve the problem.
All right, all right, sir. Dr. Poussant, focus this for us a little bit. I think one thing we are hearing from the Jewish community is, all right, Minister Farrakhan is talking about economic issues surrounding blacks, but he is using some very powerful language, calling Hitler a great man, calling Judaism wicked hypocrisy. And they're saying to black leaders around the country, do you not understand why we would like you to renounce that part as strongly as you possibly can? What do you make of that?
Well, I think the Jewish community has some legitimate concerns. Farrakhan does say things about the Jewish community that are angry and hostile, and I think they should be concerned. I also think that they have a right to pressure black leaders, that they should do that. How the black leaders respond is another story. The question of when you should intervene is another one. For instance, I think there's some assumption on the part of some people that Farrakhan is going to change his views, and I don't think that is so. So I don't think it makes sense to wait until he speaks and then to say you repudiate him. I think that Farrakhan is very clear about how he feels on these issues. He says that he speaks the truth, and he is a prophet. And there's some things that Farrakhan says that I have some agreement with. I don't have agreement with some of the undercurrents I feel, his singling out Jewish people or generalizing too much about Jewish people. Now, to some that may not be anti-Semitism, but it's clear that he has some angry feelings toward Jews that he stirs up and brings into his speeches much too frequently.
Mr. Wattenberg, what do you think that Mr. Farrakhan is doing with his speeches?
Well, I think the issue is not so much Mr. Farrakhan, who I find his views obviously repugnant. The issue is who and how publicly is going to renounce him. We live in a country with many races, many religious, many ethnic groups. Unless responsible leaders of those groups are going to act responsibly and denounce the crazies that you find in any group, then they're not responsible leaders. And I think a number of people in the Jewish community feel that some people in the black community, by no means all of them, have been too slow and not public enough in denouncing the sorts of vile things that Minister Farrakhan has to say, and I think that's the issue.
Mr. Mack, what we're seeing here is a man who has gotten an inordinate amount of publicity, and I wonder if that's because he is a very charismatic speaker, and largely that, or is it that he has touched on a rift that has been growing over the years between the black community and the Jewish community, and as he has left Los Angeles, he has left Los Angeles torn. Is it possible that there's a deeper controversy that we're looking at here?
Oh, I think no question about it, and actually in response to your question, I think it's a little of both. First of all, I think it should be pointed out that at no time did Mayor Bradley nor any of the others of us within the black community take the position that we agree fully and by hook, line, and sinker where Minister Farrakhan is coming from. The economic development, the self-help advocacy that he espouses among black people is that part of his message that we subscribe to. Anti-Semitism we totally reject, and we always have. But regarding the rift, I do feel that we're at a point here, and a part of it is about the quality of relationships existing between blacks and Jews. In Los Angeles, there are a number of us who have worked very hard over the years, and we've felt that we have maintained good and effective relationships between blacks and Jews, with Mayor Bradley, frankly, leading the charge. Part of it is we had recognizing that there can be legitimate and honest differences of opinion between friends, if you will, within the black and Jewish community as to strategically how best to deal with situations such as the one that we just occurred. And frankly, we didn't feel that there was any willingness on the part of our Jewish allies to even acknowledge or allow for the possibility that maybe our strategy had some merit.
All right, so Dr. Poussant, can there be some healing between the two groups at this point? What ought they to do?
Well, I think a lot of healing has taken place already. I think for the past year, black and Jewish groups have been getting together all over the country and talking and having discussions and trying to work on many issues in many cities. They're doing that here in Boston and in New York. So I think a lot of the rift is being healed. There are some differences. I think the main difference that the black community had with many of the Jewish organizations was around affirmative action. Now, many of the Jewish organizations support affirmative action, but that is not the image that they have in the black community, because they're against goals and quotas, which some people would agree with, but people feel that they have created an atmosphere in the United States that is hostile to affirmative action, and therefore detrimental to the black community.
Dr. Poussant, it's quite interesting that there's some survey research, which I guess you're familiar with, is that 3/4 of blacks in the United States are opposed to quotas and special preference.
That's fine.
So the position that some, and you're right, it is only some Jewish organizations are taking, is the same position that the black public, not the black leadership, would take, and that most Americans take, black, white, Jewish, or Gentile.
I agree, but because I think the Jewish leadership has been so much out front on this issue that they have created the feeling of hostility toward affirmative action, whether they wanted to or not. I think it was just a bad political move that they made, and that they are now suffering some of the consequences.
Yeah, I
Gentlemen, let me jump in here. We only have a little...
Affirmative
Mr.
action.
Let me jump in, if I may. We only have a little bit of time, and Mr. Grossman really hasn't had much opportunity to speak. Let me turn to you, Mr. Grossman, if I may. What we're seeing right there is a clear division between the two groups. Does that division remain in Los Angeles, or do you now begin a process of healing, as I had asked earlier? Are you going to be talking with one another?
Yes, in fact, Mr. Mack and I had dinner last night, and we're meeting with the mayor Monday morning, but I must respond to a point made by Mr. Mack. He said that many black leaders subscribe to the economic programs of Mr. Farrakhan, but reject his anti-Semitism. That is unacceptable to us. How would our black colleagues feel if the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan came to town, preaching economic hope for poor whites, but wrapping it up by blaming blacks for their plight? We would be expected to, and we would stand up and unreservedly and unconditionally condemn such a racist. We expect and we need the help of our colleagues across the community in rejecting such a racist, whether he be black or white.
Gentlemen, on that point, I'm afraid
the time is running short. Therein lies a part of the problem. There are obviously some differences of opinion.
I think I see the problem, gentlemen, and I am sorry to tell you that I must stop, and we will continue the conversation after we're off the air. I think we see the dissonance that exists. It is now 22 minutes after the hour.